The desert is silent. Golden sands stretch to the horizon. But between two mighty rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates, life takes root. Here, in the land later called Mesopotamia, something extraordinary happens. For hundreds of thousands of years, humans lived as hunters and gatherers, moving with the seasons. But here, more than 6,000 years ago, they began to settle, to plant, to build, to imagine something greater. Villages became towns. Towns became cities. And from these cities rose kings, temples, and empires. Here, humanity discovered how to write, govern, and rule. Here, history itself began. This is the story of the world's first cities, the first writing systems, and the first kings. From Sumer to Babylon, Mesopotamia was unlike any other place on earth. The Tigris and Euphrates rivers carried rich silt from the mountains, spilling across the plains in seasonal floods. This land became so fertile that it was called the Fertile Crescent. But unlike the predictable flooding of Egypt's Nile, Mesopotamian rivers were wild. Sometimes gentle, sometimes catastrophic. They could nourish, or destroy. To survive, people built canals, dikes, and reservoirs, mastering water like never before. And in doing so, they created the foundations of organized society. The fields produced wheat, barley, dates, and flax. Surplus food allowed populations to grow. And soon, small villages transformed into the world's first urban centers. By around 4000 BCE, in southern Mesopotamia, known as Sumer, cities began to rise. These were not villages of a few huts. These were sprawling centers with tens of thousands of people. Eridu, according to Sumerian myth, the first city ever built, home of the god Enki. Uruk, the city of heroes, ruled by the legendary Gilgamesh. Ur, a great center of trade and religion, dedicated to the moon god, Nana. Lagash, Kish, and Nippur, each powerful, each competing for dominance. Uruk, in particular, became a marvel of the ancient world. Its walls stretched 6 miles, enclosing a city buzzing with life. Temples soared upward, the most famous being the White Temple, shining against the desert sun. And in the heart of every great city stood a ziggurat. A massive stepped platform, part temple, part mountain, believed to connect heaven and earth. Life within the cities was vibrant. Streets filled with markets where traders sold grain, fish, wool, and pottery. Workshops where craftsmen shaped bronze, carved seals, and baked bricks. Houses of mud brick clustered in neighborhoods, their courtyards filled with families. These were the first cities humanity ever built. And they changed everything. At first, power lay in the hands of priests. The temples called ziggurats were not only religious centers, but also the heart of the economy. Farmers brought grain as offerings to the gods. The temple stored it, redistributed it, and managed the vast irrigation networks. Priests were record keepers, judges, and leaders. But as cities grew, and wars between them multiplied, a new kind of leader emerged, the king. The Sumerians called him Lugal, the big man. Part warrior, part administrator, part divine representative. Kings claimed authority from the gods themselves. They built palaces, commanded armies, and left inscriptions boasting of their victories. Some became legends like Gilgamesh of Uruk, whose epic tale is the world's oldest surviving story. But kingship also brought rivalry. The cities of Sumer fought constantly for land, water, and power. One generation's king could be overthrown by another. War was endless. But how could such a complex society function without record keeping? Around 3200 BCE, the Sumerians invented one of humanity's greatest achievements, writing. At first, it was simple symbols pressed into clay tablets to count sheep, grain, or jars of beer. But soon, it evolved into cuneiform, a script of wedge-shaped marks made with a reed stylus. Cuneiform became the world's first writing system. It recorded contracts, laws, prayers, hymns, and even literature. Through cuneiform, we glimpse daily life. A farmer's account of barley harvests. A merchant's record of trade in copper or lapis lazuli. A teacher's tablet with a student's clumsy handwriting. And among these tablets lies humanity's first great work of literature, the Epic of Gilgamesh. It tells of a mighty king seeking immortality, wrestling with gods and death itself. It is a story of ambition, friendship, and the eternal human desire to live forever. Through writing, the Sumerians gave us something priceless, memory that endures beyond a single lifetime. As cities grew, so did disputes. Who owned a piece of land? What punishment fit a theft? How could justice be guaranteed? The answer was law. The earliest legal codes come from Sumer, such as the Code of Ur-Nammu around 2100 BCE. It prescribed fines for injuries, punishments for theft, and protection for widows and orphans. Law was now written, visible to all, no longer just oral custom. It was a revolution in justice. But the Sumerian city-states were weak, divided by endless wars. Around 2334 BCE, a new leader emerged from the north, Sargon of Akkad. Legend says he was abandoned as a baby, placed in a basket on the river, and raised by a gardener. From these humble origins, he rose to become a cupbearer to a king, then seized power for himself. Sargon conquered one city after another, uniting Sumer into the world's first empire. From the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean, all bowed before him. He founded the city of Akkad, now lost to us, and established a dynasty that ruled for generations. For the first time, Mesopotamia was under a single ruler. But empires are fragile. After Sargon's death, rebellion spread. Nomadic Gushans swept in, toppling Akkad and plunging Mesopotamia into chaos. But Sumer rose again. Around 2100 BCE, the city of Ur regained power under King Ur-Nammu. This was the third dynasty of Ur, often called a Sumerian Renaissance. Ur-Nammu built great ziggurats, expanded trade, and strengthened laws. His code of laws predates Hammurabi's by centuries. For nearly a century, Sumer flourished once more. But time moves on. New peoples rose, new powers emerged. By 2000 BCE, Sumer faded, absorbed by outsiders. In the centuries that followed, one city grew in importance, Babylon. It began modestly, but under the leadership of Hammurabi, 1792 to 1750 BCE, Babylon became the jewel of Mesopotamia. Hammurabi was both conqueror and lawgiver. Through cunning diplomacy and relentless war, he united much of Mesopotamia under his rule. But his greatest legacy was his Code of Hammurabi. On a tall black stone stele, Hammurabi inscribed nearly 300 laws. They covered marriage, trade, theft, contracts, and punishment. Some were fair. Others, harsh. If a builder constructs a house and it collapses, killing the owner, the builder shall be put to death. If a man puts out the eye of another, his own eye shall be put out. Harsh, yes. But revolutionary. For the first time, law was not arbitrary. It was written for all to see. The stele shows Hammurabi receiving authority from Shamash, the sun god of justice. Law was not just man's creation. It was divine. But what of the ordinary people of Sumer and Babylon? Life was built around the rhythms of the rivers. Farmers worked long hours in fields of wheat and barley. They used wooden plows pulled by oxen, irrigated with canals. In the cities, craftsmen produced pottery, tools, jewelry, and cloth. Traders carried goods by donkey caravans, boats, and even across deserts. Food was simple: bread, dates, onions, fish, and beer, the staple drink of the region. Children played with toys of clay and wood. Boys studied to become scribes, learning thousands of cuneiform signs. Girls often stayed at home, but some rose to become priestesses or business owners. Religion touched every moment of life. People prayed to gods for protection, health, and prosperity. Every city had its patron deity, worshipped in magnificent temples. Death, however, was grim. The Mesopotamians believed the afterlife was a shadowy underworld, dark and joyless. And so kings built monuments, wrote inscriptions, and sought immortality through memory. For only through remembrance could they truly live forever. Though Babylon and Sumer eventually fell to new powers, Hittites, Assyrians, Persians, their legacy endured. They gave the world the first cities, the first writing, the first laws, the first empires. Their ideas spread across the ancient world, influencing Greece, Rome, and beyond. Even today, when we write, build, govern, or dream of eternity, we echo the voices of Mesopotamia. The ruins of Uruk, the ziggurats of Ur, the tablets of clay, still bearing the marks of long-dead scribes. They whisper to us from the desert sands. Here, humanity stepped from myth into history. Here, kings ruled, scribes wrote, and cities stood tall. Here, civilization began. From Sumer to Babylon, their story is not just ancient history. It is our story. The dawn of the world we live in today.